We have live winter meetings coverage. Our friend Ryan Rowland Smith has sent this out via Twitter. Hot takes here, Ryan. Anthony Rendon goes to the Angels. LA have no pitching. Not a great farm system. Will struggle to add. Astros can't pay the current roster, and they'll have to break that up very soon. Mariners fans, if you can be patient, they're in a great spot since these kids are coming. I love it. And Ryan, who spent a good deal of his career in uniform as a Mariner and now covers the Mariners on radio,
You're drinking
TV.
that Kool-Aid, huh, man?
Joins.
I got to look after my people up in the north.
I don't think you're wrong.
like
And
that.
here's
I like
the thing. I mean, look, the Angels, we still know they do need to add to the pitching ranks, right? The Astros are without Garrett Cole. We don't know what kind of league sanctions are coming their way to slap them on the wrists, and maybe more so than that. They need help at catcher in the bullpen. Look, that division is as open as it's been in a while.
Yeah, it is. And obviously, the Astros took care of everything the last couple of years. But when you look at it, there's a good 13 guys they're going to try and keep somehow. They're pushing $200 million.
Yeah.
That's going to be broken up at some point. And then the Angels, out of nowhere, all of a sudden, Billy Epler, the last year of his deal, trying to make that splash going back. This is like old school stuff, just trying to go big. We had the similar thing. 2008, Bill Bavasi was the GM. And I remember I was a young player and I started seeing Eric Bedard trade, Carlos Silva signs. All of a sudden, he was in that last little stretch to make something happen. And it just didn't work out. And I just think this is a really good thing. I spoke to Jerry DiPoto a couple of days ago, and they're so invested in this young core of these guys, and they have done such a good job turning that farm system around. They're in a great spot.
So give me some of the guys that they have coming up.
I think, let's talk about the pitching. Logan Gilbert, he was dominating last year in AA. Another kid, Justin Dunn, got just a small sample size of him in September. Justice Sheffield, he turned it around last year, had some, this is a kid with a ton of stuff. He was in the trade
From the Yankees.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he's a kid that, he went to AAA, struggled to kick it off. And then he got down into that AA, that core, that young group of guys, and just flourished. And we got a small sample size of him at the end of the year. So they're in a great spot.
Lewis came on at the end of the year, played really great.
Carl Lewis.
Not to mention all the other 12 and 13-year-olds that the Mariners are offering 6-year guaranteed contracts to that no one's ever heard of.
You know what? The Evan White deal is going to be really interesting. Honestly, Matt, I think it's going to be a trend. Because eventually, how are you going to keep your organization? Because if we're going to go young, 31, you're old now.
Right.
How are you going to keep players and keep it sustainable? You're going to have to get these guys. I've identified it. I've already paid him. He's the #1 draft pick.
Yep.
I'm investing in my scouting, my analytics. This is my guy. And if the player can take it, it's going to be sustainable. I think this might be something that's going to happen.
Yeah, and it's really low risk. I'll be honest with you, man. Walking through, this is my first ever winter meetings. I was like, oh, man, this place is going nuts. When you see these deals, coming out. But I'm walking through that lobby, and I see friends in their 33, 34. Some is trying to stay in the game as a player. They're like, oh, I'm too old. Because the game is getting so much younger. That's why I was kind of shocked when you look at these 7, 9-year deals. I thought that was a thing of the past, and hey, Scott Boras showed
so
up.
let's go back to your younger days, and we talked about how the Rule 5 draft is coming up later on this morning. You were a Rule 5 guy back in the day. Tell us about the process. Tell us about. Were you called immediately after you changed organizations?
Well, I had to laugh. You mentioned that before I came on, and it took me back. I was back in Australia, and this is no joke. I woke up in the morning, and I think this is pre-Twitter and everything. This is 2005. And I wake up and I see a US number. I don't know what the number is. I'm like, oh man, this isn't good. Usually if you see a number from the States, I've had friends around me, they get that call around that time, they start really getting released. I'm like, oh no, I'm done. And then finally I get a call. I think it was Bill Smith was the assistant GM of the Twins. He calls me and goes, hey, welcome to the Twins. And I'm like, I've got to stop you. The reception's bad. This is international. I said, what are you talking about, dude? I got no idea. And he's like, oh, we just picked you up in a Rule 5. And I swear, I promise you, I'd been playing long enough. I said, what exactly does that mean?
Yeah. What's a Rule 5?
Yeah, exactly. And I came across so bad, great first impression. But it was basically, you have to go off, make that team. And this is back when they had Johan Santana, Brad Radke. They had a stud team. They were in the playoffs the year before. I went into camp thinking, wow, we had an uphill battle to try and make
So you got selected off the AAA roster for AA?
I was in high A at the time. I went to the Olympics the year before. And I had a great year, don't get me wrong. But I walked into camp just over my skis, that's for sure.
Well, the Rule 5 is a great benefit for the player. It could be a gamble for an organization.
Yeah.
But it used to be where you're going to make the big league roster.
Right.
And I still think that's the case, or they can send you back now. But before, they used to have to pay a hefty fine to send you back.
Yeah,
so it was pretty good. It was a big gamble to take a Rule 5
it's a
guy.
nominal piece of money by today's standards to send the player back, but
Yeah.
nobody wants to miss. I mean, those are dart throws. Let's face
Yeah.
it. You're chasing an instinct. You've got somebody in your organization in the scouting department that loves a kid that's unprotected. You take a chance. And well, look, we know about the success stories. There are many of them. You were one of them, as a matter of fact, even though it didn't happen in Minnesota. The fact that you pitched in the big leagues as long as you did.
Yeah, it was, and with the 26-man, that helps out a little bit. I think there's been a little bit more of a success story with these Rule 5 picks, especially the game's getting younger. But I back then it was, I'd go out and throw an inning in the B game in spring training, and that was it. I really had an uphill battle.
Speaking of throwing an inning, the new rule, you're going to face 3 batters.
Right.
And I was saying, this is going to be interesting to see because there's been many days where a pitcher manager come up to you and go, can you get me an out? Not get me 3.
Yeah.
So I'm curious from your perspective how you see this and what you see happening.
Well, look at it 2 ways. One, it's going to affect guys who, if you're a free agent. I mean, there's a huge, stack of them right now who sell themselves and say, hey, I'm at the end of my career. I'm a lefty. I can still get those lefties out. It's going to affect those guys for sure. It's going to affect jobs. I'll be honest with you, I kind of do like it because I was always that guy that had to get righties, lefties out. I was transitioning from starting, relieving throughout my career. And I like the fact that all of a sudden now you got to get that third pitch. You got to get that changeup over.
Yeah.
But again, I don't like the fact that it dictates what the manager can do strategy-wise.
Yeah.
Because it really does. It hinders that. But I don't mind the fact that, you got to start thinking a little bit deeper when you get to that 6th, 7th inning to make sure these guys can get through that righty and get that third pitch.
Former Mariner Ryan Rowland-Smith joining us on the final day of live coverage here at the winter meeting. Good to see you, man.
Yeah. It's been good.
When are you going back down under?
January.
Okay.
Doing the tour, yeah.
Nice.
Does
Wrestling
the
some
accent
Crocs.
get thicker when you go home?
It gets way thicker. I get back and I'm just like, I'm a novelty, man. I've lost it, man. I've lost that accent.
Are there more left-handed
Yeah.
people in Australia than elsewhere because you guys drive on the wrong side of the road?
Pretty much. That's how it works, yeah.
I always had a feeling that
Exactly.
was the case. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Peter Gammon's still to join us. John
I have no idea
Heyman.
what goes through his mind.
We're back with more winter meetings coverage from San Diego coming up right after this.
Bubble hard in the double law, flashing the rings with the window crack. Holla back, money ain't a thing.
We got more bounce in California.
All the rumors, whatever news we have, the news we're going to get.
I do think we're going to see a lot of activity.